Welcome to the Science and Spirituality Podcast, where we dive deep into universal spiritual principles and ground them in modern science. My name is Chris Carden.
And my name is Kevin Carden. And we are committed to simplifying the spiritual side of success for you with easy to understand scientific research so you could walk away with practical tools to create radical transformations in your life. Let's get started. Vibration, resonance, and doing what you love. Not sure if that's going to be the ultimate title, but that's the topic today. And we realized just before recording this, we looked at all of our other episodes, and we have not had an episode specifically on this of why this is so important. We talk about it in different episodes like the power of vision, the power of visualization, imagination, and many different topics like that, and doing what you love and going for what resonates with you, but we never talked about why it's most important and how that relates to science, to spirituality, and your life. So we're going to dive into that today. And I'm really excited about this because honestly, I feel like if I didn't really have this foundation of what we're going to be talking about, I'd be a pharmacist right now, and you'd still be an accountant, Chris. So this is really like I think it's like the cornerstone of basically everything we talk about. So let's dive in.
Yeah. I mean, I think a good place to start is the reason that the term vibration and resonance is even something that we want to mention is because we all need to have a basic understanding that everything in the universe is actually vibrating.
Yep.
Like nothing's actually still. Even like the table that I'm recording this on, when my laptop's on, it looks solid, but when you like zoom in at a microscopic level, it's a dance of like energy. Everything is vibrating.
Yep.
And as human beings, we are unique in the fact that we can consciously change our vibration, which is awesome. And through meditation or through doing something you love, or through doing something you don't like, you can change your vibration up or down.
Yep.
And we've all felt this in certain times of our life, even if you didn't know that the term was vibration. I'm putting that in quotes. And we've all had times where we're feeling anxious or we're feeling depressed, and we feel a literal contraction where we don't want to reach out to people, or we don't want to go out, or we just want to sleep. Like we feel that contraction. And then we've also been in times where we're really jacked up about something. We're hanging out with friends, or like we're reading a book that really excites us, or watching something that really excites us, and we feel like expanded. So we've all experienced this at some points in our life. So in this episode, we're just going to kind of ground that for you and talk about why it's important.
Yeah. And based on what you just shared, I want to start by really diving a bit deeper into and correlating what you just mentioned about vibration, that everything is vibrating, to then why doing what resonates with you is so important and why it matters, like to just live a fulfilled, happy life. So the foundation is, like you said, everything is vibrating, everything is moving, everything has a vibration to it. And as you mentioned as well, Chris, like we're aware of our vibration and we can change it. Our feelings are the conscious awareness of the vibration we're living in. So I'll say it one more time. Our feelings are the conscious awareness of the vibration we're living in. And so based on how we're feeling is the vibration we're emitting. And based on what we are vibrating at, how we're feeling, it's what we tend to attract. And so that's really the basis of it all. And that goes with the law of attraction, which just realized we don't have an episode on the law of attraction, which goes along with this. Like the law of vibration is the fundamental law. The law of attraction goes beyond that, is the secondary law. But the law of vibration, which is what we're talking about, is that everything is vibrating, everything is moving. So that vibration, that feeling that you have, you can tune into that. And that's why it's so important to do what you love, to do what resonates with you, because that's getting more in alignment with the expansion that is just embedded in who you really are. We're one with this source, with spirit, with the universe, with the creator of everything in this universe. And that's part of the spirituality. And it comes into the science when we're noticing our own vibration. And so if something resonates with you, you'll just feel more expanded when you think about that. Like I think about this, like, for example, I just started watching the Last Dance documentary on Netflix about Michael Jordan and the Bulls when they went, was it 5 or 6?
6. They had 2
6.
three-peats back, like, yeah, 2 three-peats.
Yeah, like six championships within a very short period of time. And watching and hearing Michael Jordan talk about the journey, yeah, there's something that just resonates with me because I'm inspired by him and his level of thinking to produce such amazing results. So that
Mhm.
resonates with me. Not that I'm going to go out and try to become the next Michael Jordan. That's just personally not what resonates with me fully. But what more resonates is the thinking that he's
Yeah,
operating from. So like it inspires us. So like it's things like that, just like, okay, that resonates with me, then we're gonna lean more toward it. So
yeah.
did I explain that well enough? So like as a basis? I don't know if I
Yeah,
did. I feel
yeah,
like I was
no,
going
no,
off on
definitely.
tangents.
And then,
Okay.
well,
Cool.
like the way that I view it, and I think for more of like a practical, like from my perspective, like because sometimes when you talk about the law of attraction, like someone's like, oh, how do I like actually attract things like into like my existence like that, right? And
Yeah.
there is scientific basis for how that works, but a lot of times it's very hard to explain it. Or for someone who's not like well versed in the literature or have like has tried it to grasp it. The way that I look at it is when like I explained before, we all have the ability to change our vibration, and like you said, Kev, like our feelings are the conscious awareness of the vibration that we're in. So when you're like depressed or when you're anxious, an opportunity can come to you and you can completely not see it as an opportunity because of the way that you're feeling. But if you were looking for opportunity and you were excited and you were like, yeah, like I'm gonna do this thing, and then that opportunity came, you would have saw it and then you would have acted upon it. So from the outside looking in, someone would be like, oh, how did you attract that opportunity into your life? Where it's like the opportunity is always been there, but because you were vibrating at a level that was equal to the opportunity, when it came, you were able to see it.
Mm,
You're like, oh shit, I'm gonna take that.
yeah.
So that's the way that I like. That's the way that I view it. Because then it's not like, and again, it's not like, oh, you're making things materialize out of thin air. It's just that you're getting on the same vibrational level with the thing that you say that you want.
Yeah.
And so when you walk around in your life, you start to see things that are at the level of that vibration, and it looks like more opportunity.
Hmm.
That's the way that I like to view it. So
Yeah. No,
maybe that's like yeah,
definitely, that's a great description of it. And I think what I was talking about is like that is a different aspect of what we're talking about of like vibration and resonance. You're talking about, like things that are coming to you and based on your vibration that you're in, then you see the opportunity there to take it or not. Um,
mm,
I think what I was talking about was also like, again, both equal in terms of the value was also then like when you feel, and I was, I guess, trying to get here to this point, I was more setting the foundation. It was more of a, like, when you think of something that like, say, like starting a business, writing a book, or going down a certain path in terms of career, or thinking of someone you want to be with, like in a relationship wise, or in terms of like health, like what kind of exercise that you actually are more drawn to, all of that is a certain vibration, like that is drawing to you, like that's a certain
mm-hmm,
resonance, like
mm-hmm,
doing what resonates with you means that there's this, it's like everyone else, every one of us has a certain like unique blueprint of like what resonates with us, and it's like as
yeah,
unique as our thumbprint. And when we go toward that, when you lean in, even when it's uncomfortable, then you are expanding your life, and if you say no, it's out of fear or doubt or worry, then you're leading more towards contraction, which shows up in your vibration, which then goes, I think, to what you're pointing out, is that depending on your vibration, then like you're taking opportunities you're not.
yeah,
That's how it correlates, because I know we were talking
yeah.
about like two different things, but they do connect.
Mm-hmm. And then if anyone's having doubts about their ability to change their vibration or change what they resonate with over time, for example, like have you ever had like friends who you just lost touch with
Yeah,
because
yeah,
maybe because at a certain point, maybe in high school, like you guys were like on the same
yeah,
frequency, you're like, yeah, like we're, and then you lost touch because either you evolved, they evolved, or something
yep,
happened where now you don't resonate with them anymore.
yeah,
It's very
exactly.
similar, like that's kind of the like I feel like a good example to ground that in, where it's like, yeah, depending on how you're vibrating, let's say, or depending on your feelings, like what you want or what you're moving towards, you're going to start to see and feel those things out in your real life,
Mm-hmm.
because you're going to be like, hey, you're going to have this deep inner knowing, like, hey, I like this,
Mm-hmm.
or hey, I don't like this. And
Exactly.
that's like that idea of resonance. It's like that invisible force that you might not be able to see, but you can feel. Kind of
Yes.
similar to the idea of like when you have two pianos in a room or two guitars in a room and you play a note on one guitar or one piano, the other piano will start to, like, the strings will start to vibrate with the same note.
Yeah.
It's very similar to that idea. So it's like, what force is doing that, right? It's like, the pianos aren't connected, but it's that frequency aspect where it's like, if you're on a specific frequency, you're going to notice other things that are on the same frequency as you
Hmm.
because of this resonance factor.
Yeah, exactly. Which
And
that actually like I like that when we're talking about two different, like not two different things, but like two aspects of this. What you just said gives evidence to why it's so important to do what resonates with you,
yeah,
because that's like you're in alignment with it. And it also, for me, like when I was like back in pharmacy school and I was thinking about leaving and not continuing to get my doctorate to then go off and find a new path, which I have done now and being a coach years later, there's a whole story with that. But there was a bit of fear of like logic, like, oh, I should stay in school, like it's more practical, I can make money that way. Other, going off and doing something else that I may probably would love more, like there's uncertainty there, but you could trust in the feeling that you have, that like if it resonates with you to go off and do something else or go a different direction or different path. And the reason why you can trust that is because what you just said is that there's a connection there. It's like if you're vibrating with it, if you resonate with it, you have a connection, the feeling, that means that there is something there, as in on the other side, or there's something to connect with and some direction to move. Like I see that
yeah,
as like the spirituality of things, that it's like the essence, the energy behind then why you're being drawn to that. Like
yeah,
I've heard it said that you can't have a desire, you can't have something that you would want without there being the actual possibility of receiving what you want.
mhm, yeah,
Like it's two sides of the same coin. So you could trust that, and when you trust that and you go forward, then like with that more of a confidence that yes, like this will work out. Maybe not in the short term. There may be some mistakes, failures, things that don't work out, but you could trust that in long term, like things are going to work out because you're doing what resonates with you.
yeah. And okay, I realize that I think the reason we haven't talked about this specific topic on a podcast previously is because I think we've touched on it a lot in other previous episodes. Like, for example, I just wanted to mention about like having a vision,
Yeah.
because I feel like some people might be like, oh, I feel like I resonate with a lot of things, or like, I don't know, like I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this, and I feel like design, like having a vision and designing like a life that you would really love and actually putting some time to thinking about it makes you put out a more like honed in frequency of what you
Yes.
want to resonate with.
Yes.
And I think that's super key too, because I mean, that's like, if you want to get super specific, like if it's instead of like laying on the piano and hitting a bunch of notes,
Yeah.
you hit like a chord where it's like that's beautiful. Like that's what I
Yeah.
want,
Yep.
and that'll shoot out into this ether that we're all living and swimming in. And you'll start to see opportunities, and the opportunities will start to come to you as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. It's
And the
being
more specific
specific.
you can get, the better.
Yeah. And that's practical. Like there's this, the essence and the energy and the spirit behind that, but it's also practical because there's something in our brain called the reticular activating system, which
Boom.
mediates over our consciousness. So there are 4 billion, with a B, 4 billion bits of information coming through our 5 senses into our brain to be processed to just, see like what's going on in our reality right now. However, we are only aware of 2,000 of those bits of information per second. And our reticular activating system then determines what 2,000 bits of information we're receiving and actually consciously becoming aware of, day by day or second by second of our day. And that is determined by your vision, your attention, where you're placing your interest. And when you have a clear vision, it's way more specific. It's way easier to then generate the vibration that is in harmony with what you want, and then lean into
Yeah.
more of those things that resonate with you. And again, you see more opportunity. Like a simple practical example of that. I know he threw out a lot of, figures and science and all that and reticular activating system, but we all have had this experience where we are really hungry and we're walking around and we just see the food everywhere. We don't notice the clothing stores, or we don't notice, the person walking down the street next to us. We're literally just looking for food. Or
Hmm.
another example, for personally for me, I've experienced this, like looking at like online for your dream car. Like personally for me, one of my dream cars was a Mini Cooper Paceman. So I just looked up Mini Coopers and the different colors. And the next week I would see a dozen Mini Coopers on the road. But it's not that there were more Mini Coopers just that week compared to the prior week, but it's just because I was putting my attention on it, being specific.
Yeah.
So my reticular activating system was active toward looking for Mini Coopers.
We should do a whole episode on the ticker activating system, because that, I mean, I love that idea. I mean, it's not even an idea. Like, that's hard science.
Yep.
Like exactly what you're saying. It's because our brain can't pay attention to everything, so it hones in on the things that it believes is most important for survival.
Yeah.
But we have power over that, and a lot of times we don't realize that. And it's kind of interesting too about how like the reticular, like just how all of our cells communicate. It's through like little chemical messengers and stuff. And so like the old science, we thought that the way that chemical messengers works is like a cell would just shoot out a bunch of chemicals and it would just float over and just attach to receptors on other cells, and that's how they would communicate. But really what's actually happening is the little messenger molecules are dancing, like vibrating, and the receptors on the other cell are also vibrating, and when they resonate they connect. So it's like even at the cellular level, this resonance is important. Like this is how everything works. Like when you get down to the nitty gritty of it. And so as a human system, we can emit that. We can emit what we want to attract in our life. And it's super important, because what we also need to realize is that if we're not consciously deciding what we're emitting, our subconscious patterns are because we're always emitting a frequency, always. You can't stop emitting a frequency until you die. Yeah. So it's like, let's get under the hood and see what's, what are your beliefs? Like, what do you want? Like, what are the subconscious programs, and override them so that you can actually be emitting what you want.
100%. And I want to add one thing to that is, and I just shared this with a client yesterday, that it's one thing to understand this intellectually and another thing to get training on this, where there's repetition, there is focus, and there is accountability for you to change your patterns to then be living in alignment with what we're talking about. And that takes time. I've been studying for over 6 years this information, and I'm still studying, not because I don't get it, and I know, Chris, you study this, and not because you just don't get it, but there's not, for number one, there's more to learn, obviously, in different ways these things work, but it's fairly simple. Like what we're talking about, I imagine that someone listening to this is not like extremely revolutionary, but maybe it's like a different way. And it's like, oh, that's really interesting. And I forgot about that. Like, oh yes, like that's good. But it's about the repetition. It's about the training so that you're living this way, not just thinking about it here and there. Mm-hmm. Super important.
Yeah. And I think it goes against like what we've been taught growing up, I feel.
Yes.
Which is why it's so hard, depending on when you get your hands on this information, to override certain patterns that you've had in the past. But I think for people listening, like you said, I feel like what we're talking about resonates.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's truth. Yep. So even if there's a part of you that's like, like, I don't know, there's also a part that's like, okay, yeah, I can see this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And it's a feeling often. Yeah. Like a lot of this is logic, but there's often just that feeling. And that's what really causes us to take different action, is the feeling. We follow feelings often more than following logical thoughts. Like sometimes more than not, but like the logic. I mean, well, let me put it this way.
I think we're humans are.
Oh yeah, I was going to relate that because like often like the logic turns into fear, and the feeling is often followed. So it's just like, yeah, like the logic like turns into a feeling.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's always, feeling, like following your feelings about it. So yeah, there's the truth. You feel it. It's not something that makes sense, or it's like, well, yeah, I just feel like this is right. Like I get it. So,
and I think, and maybe another way to talk about this topic too is, especially for like people listening who are maybe involved in spirituality and this type of work, it's kind of that idea of like getting a good or bad vibe from some place or some person or something, like that resonance where it's like, oh, there's something that doesn't feel right about this. Yeah. Or there's something that does feel right about this.
Yep.
And I think another important thing is you have to kind of test it. So like if something feels good, test it, like good, like, you know, give it a shot. And then if it
Yeah.
like, you have to kind of start getting to know your internal intuition. So
Hmm.
intuition episode is good to listen to
Yes,
because we kind of talk about that, like getting to know that
definitely.
voice. But that's another, you know, key.
Yeah. And one thing on that, which we mentioned before we started recording, that I think is really important to say, is that there is a subtle difference between something that really resonates and something that brings you comfort
Hmm.
and is just a uh, I call it a base desire, where it's not really expanding your life or causing evolution, but it's just keeping you in the comfort zone, and it's like more the immediate gratification. Um, is that the term for it? I feel like there's something else.
I don't know.
Instant
Sounds right.
gratification, something like that. Yeah. But so that's often like an example, like is like, it probably feels really good to eat a piece of cake because it's delicious. But if you eat the entire cake, like it still tastes good, but it's gonna destroy your digestive system if you keep eating that
Mhm.
over time. So like that's a desire, like that's more of the physical five senses desire. But what we're talking about is really more of that internal desire, the more the internal resonance. And it's not wrong to satisfy the desires of the five senses, but it shouldn't be the end of it, like the main thing.
Mhm.
It should be like something that you enjoy, because we're in this human experience. So of course, like uh you enjoy the five senses, and like taste, smell, taste, like like what you see and touch and all that. I know I only mentioned like three or four, but you get what I'm saying. Like it's not wrong, but what we're talking about is more of the deeper resonance within, which
Yeah.
often does go against like logic or yeah, like I was mentioning about my path. And same with you, Chris. Like it made more sense for you to stay as an accountant, but what resonated with you was becoming an acupuncturist, because you
Yeah.
wanted to heal people and serve people in that way instead of crunching numbers and all that.
Yeah. And again, that was the, like, it's a process sometimes. Like if
Yeah.
you're listening to this and you're like, I don't know, like, I don't know if I can make that big switch, or I don't know what I want to do. It's like, I didn't just wake up one day and be like, oh, acupuncture. It's like, you got to
Mm-hmm.
follow what's interesting to you. Like, you
Yes.
got to follow what you like. Being curious.
Yes.
It's like when you approach things with curiosity, there'll be some things when you're like, nah, I don't want to learn anything more. I don't want to learn any more about that. Like, this is
Yeah.
boring. But
Yeah.
then there'll be other things where it's like, I want to know more about this.
Exactly.
Like, following your curiosity is a really practical way to kind of get at what you're resonating with at that point in time, to follow down that path and see where it leads.
Yeah. And one final point I want to make, and then we can bring this in for a landing unless there's anything else, is to just trust those feelings and then go for it, because you can't just think about what resonates with you and think your way into like, oh, like, will this be a solid choice for me to make to go for or not? You have to try it to see if it does resonate, like really resonate.
Mhm.
Like a simple example is, and it, our desire, like our what resonates changes. And a simple example is I got certified as a yoga instructor 4 or 5 years ago, and I taught for about a year. And then the desire, like the resonance of it, started to fade away as I got more interested in coaching, then starting my own coaching business. So like it can shift and change, but I don't look back and say like, oh, like I wish I didn't do that. Like, it resonated with me at the time, but then it didn't. So like I shouldn't have done it at all. Like I think is a perfect step along the process of being where I am today. And I still practice yoga. It's just I don't teach. So like it's just you could trust it and go forward with it. It'll lead you down a path that you'll ultimately want to go anyway. So
Yeah.
yeah. So anything else on that, or just in general?
No, I think I'm good. I think I've said all that I want to share about this topic for now.
Okay. Yeah, same here. Um, the one final thing I'll share though is what you were talking about before, Chris, which I'm glad you brought up because it didn't even pass through my mind, about being specific with your vision and clarity on that. And we have a whole episode on the power of vision and the power of visualization, which I'd highly recommend. And I think it's actually in one of those episodes I offer this, but I want to offer this again for any new listeners, anyone who's listened to this for a while and just hasn't heard this yet. But so, as I mentioned, I'm a coach. I've been a full-time coach for 3 years now at the recording of this podcast. And I carve out time between my coaching and speaking schedule for what I call strategy sessions. And a strategy session is a 45-minute conversation with me, just one-to-one, where I get to help you get clear on what struggles you're facing, get clear on your vision, and then what steps you could take to bridge the gap from where you are to where you want to be. And then if it looks like we're a good fit to work together, we could talk about coaching. But the main thing is serving you. And this session I want to give you is a complimentary gift. Now, these are worth $250. And fun fact, I had someone pay me $250 for one of them, which was actually a quite surprise and a gift. But it really is worth that. Now, I want to offer this as a gift here because I know it can serve. And especially for the people who are listening to this episode and resonate with what we've been talking about and what Chris talked about of having a clarity of vision, I'd be thrilled to offer that and love to have a conversation. So if that resonates with you, then somewhere on this podcast episode, we'll post a link for where you can go and book a strategy session. But way more likely, way easier, I think will be, is to email me at kevin@kevincarton.com and put in the subject strategy session, or put in the subject the title of this podcast episode, and just say, hey, I'd love a session. Because my sessions usually do fill up. So even if I give the calendar link, like, you might not see any spots. So just email me and we'll schedule a session when I have time available. So kevin@kevincarton.com. And I look forward to talking with you.
Sweet.
That's all we got. So apply this into your life, and we'll talk soon if the strategy session resonates with you. And at the very least, do what resonates with you. Do something today, like some small thing that resonates with you. Start down this path, and maybe that's listen to another episode. I don't know. All right, y'all. Talk with you another episode. Hope you have a great day. And that's it for today. So thanks for tuning in, and we really hope you enjoyed listening to this episode as much as we enjoyed recording it. So any questions, any comments, just connect with us on Instagram. You could always DM us at Kevin Francis Carton
and at Chris J. Carton. And also, if you feel guided to, the one thing we do ask is for you to please rate the podcast and leave us a review. This way we can reach more people and impact more lives with this amazing information. With that, we'll see you on the next episode.